Right guys, welcome back. Some of you might be new. I feel like this video will get a few new people to the channel, so welcome. But we're going to do something a bit different from the predictions today. It's going to be sort of a lesson, and all these lessons are based on my opinions, my experiences, my knowledge from my coaches, just everything that's put together by me. So yeah, these are just my opinions really, and I don't really like planning these out in terms of I know what I'm going to talk about today. But it's going to be just off the top of my head, and as it goes along I'm going to be drawing it on the chart. I'm being difficult. I'm going to do it on TradingView just in case I need to do like a live example, I guess. But today's going to be about rules and psychology. Now I asked on Instagram what the first lesson that you lot wanted to do, and it was between selling at, let's say, resistance, or why you shouldn't do that all the time, and the psychology behind rules and fluidity, I guess. So that's what I was gonna call it. And yeah, so without wasting your time, I'm just gonna get straight into it. And basically what I mean by rules and fluidity is how much freedom you have in a market, right? So your rules can be black and white completely, like there is such thing as in you can do it. Even though the markets are subjective, you can easily set yourself black and white rules. And for me, there isn't any, it's more of a, let's say, a continuum. So it will be like a line from here to here, and like I said, I'm doing this off the top. So here will be no rules, and then here would be full rules. So a full rule strategy would be something like my FTB, for example, where every single little thing from it is concrete, alright, aside from targets actually. So if you're trading FTB conventionally, every little thing is rules based. How big the candle is in terms of where it closes, what time it has to close, how you enter, when you enter, all of them things is so rules based you can't go wrong, and that's full rules based strategy. No rules is me literally coming into the market like, oh, I just feel like buying today, right, boom, let's buy for no reason, right? So that's completely on the other hand. Now if I had to choose which side of the market of these two extremes I'd be on, well, it would always be full rules, right? No rules would mean everything's based on an emotion, and you still need some rules in there. With like, even if you want to trade free, you still need some rules. But I want to give you sort of the pros and cons, and obviously I've traded very rules based over the last year almost. It's quite rules based, and I'm slowly starting to evolve into more fluid rules, and I want to sort of tell you how the psychology changes, and the pros and cons to each side of it. So yeah, we'll start off with full rules. Now the full rules, what's good about full rules is this, right? It's easy to follow. Alright, so that's number one. So it's very easy to follow. It's just black and white. It's almost someone telling you what to do, right? Obviously it's your rules, but it's someone telling you what to do. So if you have to sell at 4 o'clock, you have to sell at 4 o'clock. It's that simple, right? So it's easy to follow, and because of that, it takes the emotion out completely. For me anyway, personally, it takes the complete emotion out of it, because you're just following the system, right? It's not based on what you think. The market doesn't care what you think. Your trading plan doesn't care what you think. You've already designed your trading plan, so now it's just based on you and that system, and you're trading the system. And you can say it's almost robotic, because it's so robotic, there you go, because it's so automated almost. Like, it's one of these systems where you could probably actually get a bot, or however they automate the systems to do it, because that's what you're basically doing, right? So a strategy like the FTB, you can automate that quite easily, right? Obviously there's pros and cons to automations, but you get what I'm trying to say. So it's easy to follow, takes the emotion out, and you're robotic. So that's sort of the pros to having full rules. And I want to move on to the cons, and obviously the cons will sort of contrast here. So with the strengths, I'll probably, let me see, I'll do yeah, I'll do the cons first rather than the pros of fluidity. And that's how I'm going to call it. Not no rules, but I'm going to call it fluidity, because fluidity for me is somewhere in this zone here. Alright, so that I would move fluidity here. That's just the way I define it. It would be, you know, there's still some rules, but it's a lot based on your perception of the market and all of them things. So 4 rules. What are the disadvantages of that? Well, I mean, the disadvantages of it is sometimes it's hard to build discrete rules, right? I mean, we're in a subjective market 24/7, right? Not everything can be defined by rules, in my opinion, right? You're going to disagree with some of these things, like if you're trying to define an outside return, something like this, right? And you think, oh, it has to come down to the where's my fib? Has to come down to the 382, otherwise it's not an outside return. But when you see on the chart it clearly is. Well, you know, that's the pros and cons of that. So for me, sometimes it's hard to build these discrete rules, or how many candles it has to be for an outside return, or all of them things. So it can be difficult to build in, because the markets are subjective as well, right? So that's one downside to it. The second downside, which I feel like is the biggest one, and I'll go into depth a bit later, is you're not always going to be in trades you believe in. So I'll say against beliefs. So what I mean by that is, because it's so automatic, because it's almost just, it's literally a signal for you to buy or sell, you may find yourself going against your actual analysis, well, I said beliefs here, analysis of the market. So and again, I'll use FTB as an example, even patterns, right? Sometimes I've had to buy or sell in a certain position where I'm thinking, look, I don't think that price will go to the to my target before it goes to my stop loss, because that's what your trade is, right? And you disagree with it, but you still take the trade, and because it's easy to follow and takes the emotion out, and it's robotic, you can still do that. Now, when it comes to drawdowns, here's the problems, right? The problem is this: when you're in a drawdown, sorry, and you're in a robotic system, a mechanical system, you feel helpless. For me, that's personally, again, whether it's true or not, but for me, this is one of the biggest feelings I'm experiencing currently, because I've been in a drawdown for 5 months. Wow. Okay, anyways, yeah. So 5 months I'm in a drawdown, and I've literally made about 2-3 mistakes executing my system. So I feel helpless, because technically I'm doing everything I should be right, yeah, and I'm still losing money. And I just feel helpless, like, look, what am I doing here? I'm not doing anything wrong, but I'm losing money, I'm leaking money. So why is this happening, right? And you feel helpless. But when you contrast it with like a smaller drawdown, ones where they're typically not 5 months, they're not meant to be 5 months, right? You almost attribute it to the system, you don't take it personally. So right, when you're losing, right, I know I'm still confident in trading, right, because I'm not actually doing anything wrong. Technically, in theory, right, I'm not doing anything wrong, because I'm sticking to the plan. I'm sticking to a plan that's got a positive expectancy and all of them things, but the system is just not performing. So I'm attributing this blame to my system, which is a huge sort of stress relief in a way, and you know, it just takes the blame out of you. But again, in comparison, you have this feeling of being helpless. So there's that. Now, I'm not really going to go over the what's it called, like the no rules benefits, because I don't really say there's too many benefits. It's just the only one I could think of is probably you can say you believe in every trade, but this belief is based on pure emotion most of the time, especially if you're trading live money, like a lot of money, sorry, it will just get in the way. you know, there'll be a lot of hindsight. Oh, I could have, should have, would have. Oh, I should have waited like 2 more minutes for the candle to close. Oh, I shouldn't have waited it to close. And there's no rules. It's all chaotic and it's not consistent. So trying to be a consistently profitable trader with that, it's probably not going to work. But fluidity for me, maybe it should be about here. I mean, depends how fluid, obviously. But for me, this one is probably the best place to be in, right? And that's what I'm slowly starting to evolve in. And here's some of the advantages, right? So fluidity is still rules based. It's not fully rules based, but it's still rules based. So something as simple as needing a lower low, lower close in comparison to a market fill entry, right? That's a rules base. Now you get this freedom, right? Freedom to choose which kill zone or stuff like that. Your subjective side can come out, so you have that freedom of analysis is what I'll call it. Yeah, there you go. Right, so you've got the freedom of analysis because you're not so stern on your rules. You know, you might be that, right, this opportunity I don't want to take because of this reason. You know, my bullish bias is because of this. I only want to buy. I don't want to be selling, even though the system is saying sell. You know, I can't avoid this because you've got that discretion, you've developed it, and you're using your analysis. And because of that freedom of analysis, you can, for me, I feel like you can what's the word for it? You can manage your, let's say, risk. But what I mean by that, there you go. So you can manage your risk and probability. And what I mean by this is, right, so if you think there's a setup which it's a potential setup, right? So say we've broken, say we're in a downtrend, something like this, and we pull back into this kill zone, and typically you think sell, right? But something in your analysis, whether it's a higher time frame, whether it's a RSI indicator or anything, is telling you, even though in the kill zone, you know, I'm not a huge fan of this opportunity. I don't feel like it would, feel is the wrong word here, but I don't think the price will fully go to here. Like I expect it to, but it's not strong prediction. Do you get what I mean? So it's not as high probability. Well, because you've got this fluidity and freedom to do almost what you want, you can be like, look, because it's not a good opportunity, I'm going to take a conservative entry, let's say a double top or a 2618, and then get involved. So you're still involved in the setup, but based on your discretion and your judgment of the market, you are taking a more conservative approach. And that's, I mean, I feel like that's one of the big points here, because if you've got a system which enters, let's say, on a doji, but this doji occurs here in that kill zone I just drew out, well, it's not going to sit well with you all the time, because you're there like, look, it's not a great setup, so why am I being so aggressive on my entry? So there's that as well. Now, yeah, I feel like I've covered the sort of pros, and it's more freedom based, more yeah, you believe in every trade. That's what I think is the biggest thing for me, or most of your trades at least. So if you're trading a trend continuation, for example, right, and it's all based on your subjectivity, and you've taken this long position, for example, then it's based on what you think, what you genuinely think the market will do. So whether you get it right or wrong is based on, you know, what you believe in the market. So for you to handle that psychologically, it's easier. Now the cons of it is discretion takes time. I think that's one. Discretion takes time. All right, so I feel like this is one big one. So you can't come into the markets after 1 month, feel like you've done like one bit of backtesting and feel like, oh, you can go into the markets live. It does take discretion, it does take time. In my personal situation, do I feel like I'm ready to sort of move to a more fluid approach? Sorry, I can't talk. Wow, I do. Have I got years and years of experience? No, I mean, I've spent, what, a year and a half of a lot of chart time. I've done a lot of stuff on my charts, discretionary, of all of them things. Am I ready? Well, I feel like it's worth like me trying, at least for now. Obviously I'm not saying I'm gonna go with like hundreds of thousands or whatever. I want to try that approach because I'm confident and I want to experience that psychology from it. And the difference in psychology here is this, right? When you lose, you take, so opposite to the rules based, you take losses more personal. So what I mean by that is this, right? So some of my trading is discretionary, like my trend continuation, and sometimes even based on back testing, right, I only win around 50% of the time. But when you lose in the market and you know it's a trade which you sort of predicted, you think maybe I got it wrong. If it loses, right, you're there like, I got it wrong. Maybe it wasn't the system, it was me. My analysis is bad, my you know, my entry's not good enough, all of them things. You start doubting yourself more, so you're taking it more personal. Now with experience, I feel like that will go away. So it's going to be, you know, it's going to go away to more of an extent, but it's more dangerous when you're in a drawdown because your emotions, whether you show them or not, they will somehow deeply affect your trading, right? So because it's discretionary, and if you just lost like 5 trades in a row, and in reality they're all good setups that you should have taken, well, you might fear the 6th because you're low on confidence because you've taken all these losses personally. Like rules based, I've taken about 8 or 9 in a row losses. It hurts, don't get me wrong, it really hurts, but it's easier to take this next trade knowing it's not my fault. So it depends on how you want to look at the psychology. And for me, the biggest thing to I'd say take into consideration, make it yellow because fancy colors, and I don't know why, but it's for me the biggest thing, because you always worry about losing. We always focus on losing more than winning. Well, we should do anyway. I guess we do more as humans, but it's how do you want to take your drawdowns, right? And there's 2 limits. There's basically your you know, personally, or actually no, the feeling, sorry, what's the word for it? Right, there you go. Responsible or helpless. There you go. So for me, this is basically what it is. So if you're in a drawdown, right, you'd feel more responsible, right? If you're in a drawdown here with rules based, you feel helpless. Now, which side would you rather feel? We're all different people, so it's all going to vary down to you. But for me personally, I don't like being helpless. I've experienced it this year, and that's why I've said it before, that I feel like maybe this is a blessing in disguise because it's forced me into this into trying this more discretionary approach. But it's one of these things where, like, I'm sat there like, look, I like to have some control of what's going on. Now, in reality, you're not in control, right, of the markets. They'll do what they want. But just based on my experience, I'd rather believe in every trade and take responsibility, because that's someone I've been all my life, always take responsibility, whether it's good or bad. I take responsibility. So for me, helpless is not a good feeling to be in, which I'm currently at, and it's just frustrating. And yeah, I feel a lot more frustrated. Now, I don't know if I ever will go into drawdown 5 months straight after making a more fluid approach, right? Hopefully I don't. But it'll be interesting to see how I start thinking about myself and my system, because in reality I might be in the middle, so I might need a fairly rules-based fluidity system, if that even makes sense. So if my fluidity is moved up to, let's say, here, right? So if you're taking the FTB or patterns, for example, which are full rules-based approaches, well, you add some discretion in. So we'll draw in an FTB illustration. Yeah, so let's take FTB or patterns, right? FTB is fully rules-based, the initial way it's traded, right? But I've added targets which are discretionary, so I've moved it slightly better, more fluid, because it's discretionary. Yeah, there's no rules on my targets, it's not a set amount. So there's that. Now if I want to make it even more discretionary, I could be like, look, I only take them in a downtrend, whether it's on the daily or on the hourly. Downtrends are subjective, right? There's always going to be discretion involved, because not everyone sees the same outside returns, or not everyone sees the same things, or looking at the same time frame, so it makes it a bit more fluid. And that's how you can evolve your rules-based system to something like this. If you take, for example, harmonic patterns, right, they're very rules-based, right, the way I trade them and the way they're taught to me, right? So they're very rules-based, right? But how can you actually make them more fluid? Well, you can actually say, look, I only take them if they align with a higher time frame bias. What higher time frame bias is subjective. You can say only if they are a major level of structure. Major level of structure is subjective, right? So you move it more to the fluidity side of things, and that's how you can sort of mix and match your system. So you sort of go around this continuum, finding what suits for you. So I've basically traded, let's say here, I'd say I've traded, that's how my trading's been, right? And I'm slowly trying to move down to about here, test it. I mean, I want to try and move down to here and then see if that's a bit too much, and then maybe adjust it to here. So hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, for me, the biggest thing is it's always down to you at the end of the day, what you think, what you prefer, how your psychology is. And you know what, none of it will happen, you won't find any of these things out until you trade it live. That's one thing you've got to, you can take from me, whether it's right or wrong. That's my opinion. I don't think you can experience any of these things without trading live. Now, I'm not saying go live straight away, no, of course not, right? But there's so many things that I've tested and I think, oh, this looks good, this could look good, right? Especially with continuation, right? It's one of the things I've struggled with, you can say, just because of where I want to do it. I tried to do it very rules based, it didn't sit well with me. Tried to do it more fluid, but it was still rules based. So now I'm finding something that actually works for me, that is, you know, it's a balance of everything. So it's right about in this zone that I'm liking. And I would never, I've tested continuation on the same pairs, I would say 3, even 4 times, and we're talking months of back testing on one pair, right? Just to apply it live in the markets for the next few weeks, and regardless if it wins or loses, I'm sat there disagreeing with the setup somehow, right, or disagreeing with the entry somehow. And you don't find this out in your psychology until you trade live. That's my biggest opinion, I guess. So yeah, I think that's wraps it up for today. There's going to be more lessons. I actually enjoy doing this, and I guess it gets my stuff out of my head, but it should benefit you, whether you're a brand new trader looking to build your system, or you're sort of in between, like brand new on my stage, or you're just at my stage or further ahead. Whatever it is, I feel like it can benefit you. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, subscribe, like and share. There's going to be a few more educational videos, maybe once a week coming up. Obviously there's a lot I can do to teach and all of them things. There's a lot of knowledge I personally feel like I've got. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and yeah, in a bit.